Hello everybody, it's Rachel from the Flint River Aquarium and I am in our aviary today and we're going to talk about all about what makes a bird a bird. So all the different types of characteristics that birds have. There's so many species of birds and they all look different and they all live in different places and eat different things, but they all have these similar characteristics that define them as birds. So the first one is feathers. So I've got some feathers right here. So all birds have feathers. And these are really, really important for our birds. The first main function is that feathers are very, very lightweight. So that lightweightness helps birds to be able to fly. Feathers are actually modified scales. So they descended from reptiles. So those scales changed or evolved into feathers. And they also help insulate the bird or keep the bird warm. And then lastly, for some species of birds, the colors of those feathers can either act as camouflage. So these feathers are brown and blotchy with tan and some little bits of white and stuff. So these feathers would be really great camouflage for this bird to allow to hide in trees or in the brush. But some feathers are very, very brightly colored, and those, like your parrots or your lorikeets, and those feathers can actually help birds assist in trying to attract a mate. So feathers can do those three functions, and they're all really important. Another characteristic of birds is that all birds have wings. So these are actually wings. And so unlike most animals, when we think of them, they have those four appendages. We usually think of those animals as they have four legs, or like we have two legs and two hands. Birds will have 2 feet and 2 wings. And the main purpose of these wings is that these wings are very, very strong and they allow the bird to be able to get that lift up to be able to fly. But not all birds can fly, but all birds do have wings. So some birds, like your ostrich or your penguins, they can't fly, but they still have those wing appendages. The next characteristic of birds is that they all lay eggs. And they all lay these hard-shelled or calcareous eggs. So when you think about your hard-boiled egg and when you have to crack it, they all that have that hard shell coating. So all birds will lay those eggs, and then the baby bird will hatch out of those eggs. And then most birds will make a nest in order to keep those eggs and protect those eggs. There are some birds, like the cowbird, which won't make a nest, but will actually lay their eggs in other birds' nests and trick those birds into thinking that their egg belongs to them, and then those other birds will care for the cowbird's chicks. And then some birds, like an owl, they won't make a nest, but they might find an abandoned nest from an eagle and use that nest, or they'll also keep their eggs in hollow logs or stumps and tree stumps and things like that. But all birds will lay eggs. Most birds lay nests, but not all of them. The next thing that makes a bird is that they are endothermic. So endothermic also gets called warm-blooded, and that just means that they can regulate their own body temperature, just like we can. It doesn't matter what the temperature is outside, if it's a really, really cold day or if it's a pretty hot day. If you were to take a bird's temperature, unless the bird was sick and not feeling well, the bird should maintain a pretty consistent temperature, just like people. The next thing that makes a bird, or the last thing that makes a bird, is they all have beaks and they all have feet. So like I mentioned previously, all birds will have 2 feet. Those feet generally are not covered by feathers, by the scales. And depending on what those feet look like can determine how that bird behaves in the wild. So think about eagles. Their feet, they have those really large talons with those huge claws that they use to be able to grasp their prey, while versus like our wading birds back here, they have those really long feet and really long toes that allow them to be able to walk through the water without creating lots of ripples. And then some birds, like our songbirds, their feet will actually involuntarily close every time they sit down so that they're able to perch and sleep on tree branches without falling off. And then all birds have beaks, so instead of having teeth that they, like we do, to be able to chew and eat their food, they just have a beak. And just like feet, depending on what that beak looks like or its shape, you can kind of determine what that bird will eat. So like our herons back here, They have those really long, sharp, pointy beaks that they use to be able to stab and grasp fish out of the water, versus our ducks, they have those bills that are more rounded, and they use that to scoop little tiny plankton or algae into the water, and they filter the water out, and then they get all the stuff that's the good stuff that's left behind. So those are the things that make a bird, but I also want to go a little bit more into flying, because we did mention that most birds do know how to fly, but not all birds know how to fly. And so the way how birds are actually able to fly is really, really cool. The first thing is that we mentioned that birds need to be really, really lightweight. Most birds have hollow bones that keep them lightweight, and then those feathers also are very lightweight, but they also have really, really strong breast muscles and muscles in their wings, so that they're able to flap really, really hard, and that allows them to lift themselves off of the ground. Now, once they're off of their ground, the shape of their wing allows them to be able to fly. So they have this curved top part of their wing. So once they're in the air coming on top of their wing actually moves faster than the air below their wing, and that's due to that curvature of their wing. And because the air is traveling faster on top of their wing, there's actually more air located underneath their wing. And since the bottom part of their wing is broader and flatter, that creates a push or a lift. So that allows that bird to be able to stay in the air and helps them be able to fly, which is, I think, really, really cool. You can actually try this at home if you're in, or not home, but in your car. So if you're a passenger in the car, roll down the window while you're going at a pretty good speed, and you can take your hand out, and if you have it flat like this as you're cruising along, you can kind of hit those like places in the air, and your hand will kind of bump up, versus if you have it like this, you're going to push against the air, and you're not going to have that nice little flowy ride. So some of y'all have probably done this before. It feels nice while you're cruising. But those are all the things that make a bird, and a little bit about how birds can fly. I hope y'all enjoyed. Make sure that you can come check out our birds in the aviary next time you're around, and we look forward to seeing you soon.